This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, non-stop Leafs talk starts now.
Happy Tuesday. What's going on? Presented by PointsBet Canada and Montana's. It's the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. As you can see, I'm flying solo for today's show. Don't fret. Jay Rosehill standing by for 3 hits with Rosie. I saw it's like almost 5 minutes long. I could only wonder what Rosie has to say. Another off day for the Maple Leafs before they host the Boston Bruins. Yes, the rival Boston Bruins coming up on Wednesday night before a nice little All-Star break, a nice little 9-day break, including the bye week as well, and at a perfect time, of course, now without Austin Matthews. You look at the Boston Bruins, they've dropped 3 in a row for the first time this season. Not to mention the 5-game homestand finally coming to a conclusion for the Leafs. They're 3-1-0 through 4 outings. So the Leafs and Bees coming up tomorrow night. The full preview is coming up with yours truly and Jay Rosehill tomorrow before I jet off to Fort Lauderdale for All-Star Weekend. Plenty to discuss on today's show. Should mention as well to remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review wherever you're checking us out. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on all things Toronto Maple Leafs. Not new information by now. I've been watching the show the last couple of weeks. We are introducing and migrating over to a brand spanking new YouTube page. Thanks to producer Alex for putting it up on the board there at the Leafs Nation 401. At the Leafs Nation 401, where you can follow along with clips and interviews. The interview with today's guest will be up there later on today, and got a lot of shorts, a lot happening on the Leafs Nation 401, so make sure to follow along. Thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns, drop us a line in the chat down below here on YouTube. We'll get to them a bit later on in the show, and a lot of you have been very, very spicy lately, of course, with the trade deadline around the corner. You don't want to miss the next couple shows and the next couple weeks of shows as we get closer and closer. By my math, I think we are 31 days away from the NHL trade deadline, and the speculation continues to grow on the Leafs' behalf. What are they going to do ahead of the trade deadline? Only time will tell when it comes to Kyle Dubas and company. Should mention before I hop over the boards here in about 10 minutes from now, Brian Hayes, yes, the host of Overdrive on TSN 1050 and TSN will drop by. We'll get some of his hot takes. We'll get his thoughts on Matt Murray and that whole episode. I took some heat yesterday, but understandably so. I think a lot of people pretty much mentioning that, yeah, this is pretty much what they thought they were getting with Matt Murray, as somebody who does have the history of injuries, and it seems to be coincidental that it's happening continuously against one of his former teams in the Ottawa Senators. So Brian Hayes is coming up in about 5-6 minutes from now, but for now, we're going to get over the boards. Oh, yes, the trade talk is picking up, and the first blockbuster happens yesterday. Bo Horvat, now a member of the New York Islanders. Lou Lamoriello, if you recall, a couple of years back, actually traded Horvat, at least the pick, to the Vancouver Canucks for Corey Schneider all those years back when he was with New Jersey, the number 10 for Schneider. And now he gets Horvat. I know he didn't pick him at that time, but they trade Beauvillier, Aturatu, a prospect, and a protected 2023 first-round pick. All in all, I think it's an act, a move of desperation by Lou Lamoriello. The writing's on the wall. We talked about it last week. There's like Fire Lou chants at UBS Arena there. So they had to do something. I don't know if a guy like Horvat's going to put them over the top, but it certainly helps that offense. And I think you look at a player like Horvat, I think he'll fit in perfectly with what they're trying to establish and build and continue to grow with respect to the New York Islanders. But I think all in all, it's one of those deals you really can't handicap right now. You're going to have to wait down the road. I more so just wondered about protecting picks. Is that just something, formulaic at this point in terms of being a formality in this day and age of the NHL, especially when you look back at the Duchesne deal with Colorado and Nashville, and, of course, the Ben Sherratt deal last year with Montreal and Florida. Now, only time will tell when it comes to the Panthers, but it doesn't look very, very good right now when it comes to not protecting that first-round pick. And I still wonder if there's any ripple effect on the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I'd love to cover with Brian Hayes in about 5 minutes from now. Just more so Boston was in the thick of things with Bo Horvat. What does this mean now for the Bruins? Who do they go after? Of course, some of the targets we've heard from the Maple Leafs point of view, having the likes of Elliot Friedman and Frank Saravalli and Dave Pagnotta on over the last couple of weeks. Ivan Barbashev, Jake McCabe, Frank Vetrano, with the Leafs being on Ryan O'Reilly. There's a lot of questions, right? But I'm just more thinking along the lines, so do the Leafs have to be reactionary with the likes of Tampa and Boston who are in their division? Maybe chime in the chat here on YouTube? Do they have to be reactionary? Do they stay in their own lane? Do they worry about themselves? That's another big time question for me as we move closer and closer to the trade deadline. So that's the biggest, latest news. Bo Horvat, a member of the New York Islanders, and I can only wonder how much they're scrambling behind the scenes at the All-Star festivities already in Sunrise, Fort Lauderdale. Just what are they going to do now? Horvat was an entrant with the Vancouver Canucks. Now he's a member of the New York Islanders. But without further ado, and as mentioned, 5 minutes or so away from Brian Hayes, here's another edition of 3 Hits with Rosie.
Hey guys, welcome back to 3 Hits with Rosie. First thing I wanted to touch on, Bobby Hull's passing, we found out today. Tough to see. The older you get, the more you kind of see and notice people that pass away that you remember had an impact on you or that you recognize. And by no means did I cross eras with Bobby Hull at all, but I knew who the Golden Jet was my whole life, and always heard the story of him signing, the first guy to sign for $1 million. I heard how fast his slap shot was. That picture of him chucking hay bales at the farm, he's just jacked out of his mind, and it's like the 50s or something. He made an impact on the game, no doubt, and he's one of the first guys to curve his stick, and to he had the hardest slap shot in the world, and he curved his stick to see what he could make the puck do, and messing around with things. He's kind of a trailblazer in that way. You look at the kids these days, they got crazy curves and training tools and different flexes, and they're always seeing what they can make the puck do, and it's kind of a byproduct of guys like Bobby Hull doing what they did in their era respectively. So you definitely want to give a nod when they pass away, and take time to remember their impact on the game and just life in general. I have a story. When I was playing junior hockey, we were just sitting there eating one day with the Olds Grizzlies in a restaurant, and in came this guy, and he was kind of a presence, and then all of a sudden a ring goes bouncing across the table, and someone picks it up, and he goes, "That's what you'll hopefully be playing for one day, boys." And it's Bobby Hull, and it's his 61 Blackhawks ring that we all got to pass around the table and check out, and he just stopped to have a bullshit. Just seemed like kind of a solid guy at the time anyways. But moving on to number 2, the All-Star game. Like, what is it all about? What do people think about it? I mean, what do the players think about it? I know what Nick thinks about it. He gets to go stay in a hotel with a water slide, and he's pretty excited, and he's all hard about it. Cool, but is there a correlation between injuries going way up right before the All-Star game? I'd love someone to look that up for me and let me know. If the numbers boost near the All-Star game, you could say it's the grindy days or whatever, but let's be honest. I think guys pull the chute who don't want to go to the All-Star game, and, you can hide behind the guise of, I'm a competitor. My number one priority is the playoffs, is my team, is winning, is fulfilling my contract, blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of get behind that. But at the end of the day, the All-Star game, you're not really playing for anything. You have to ask the same media bullshit questions all day long. And it's kind of a mess around thing. Sure, you get to have fun. And that's why guys go, no question. But it'd just be nice if there was something on the line that meant something to these guys. They've tried paying them $100,000 or giving them this. It doesn't seem to get it done with these All-Star type players. But, if all of a sudden they're playing, for their team to get some kind of benefit in a playoff sense, or I don't know how it would work. Obviously baseball does it, but it's a little different story with the hockey game. It's tough to say, but I'd like to hear what you guys think about what could be done to the All-Star game. Is it fine, leave it alone? But I kind of get the sense that it's just not taken seriously. In fact, I know that, and I want question with how many players actually even want to go to it. Number 3, just to touch on the Matt Murray situation again. I mean, people are talking about going and getting a goalie and whatnot. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think they will look there at all. Matt Murray tends to go like this with his injury status. And was the timing of his realization of his injury the other day, on Friday, pretty inconvenient? Yeah, it really was. You'd think that if he was even close, they'd be on watch and Sammy would be ready. It doesn't seem like it was that way at all. It seemed like he just bailed last minute. You'd like to see the communication with the trainers and what be a little bit clearer than that. So it makes you wonder what Murray's doing. But I like to give the players the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully he's just rehabbing up and getting healthy again. I really expect them to be a 1-2 punch in the playoffs. I do not think their minds are for looking elsewhere right now at all. I mean, when he's in, he's solid. I think this is only the second time he's been injured, all year. And now you get a chance to, it's a good time of year minus this Boston game coming up, but good time of year to start testing out, some of your talent on your third string and whatnot. And, after All-Star break, it's a great time to do that. So I'm not worried about the goaltender situation. I haven't really been all year, but crazier things have happened. I'm sure Nick will take the opportunity to say I'm wrong as soon as I click this button. But you go for it, Nicholas.
There you have it, Jay Rosehill. And we talked about this in the alumni box the other game. For some reason, he does these 3 hits with Rosies, and he formulates sort of like an English accent. So it's always intriguing to hear from former Leaf Jay Rosehill, his thoughts here on the Maple Leafs. And I didn't say go out there and get a goalie with Matt Murray. It's just a struggle for me on a daily basis, not knowing if this guy's going to start, especially against his former team. Anyways, Montana's is bringing back the viewing party with daily deals in 2023. It's Tuesday, which means $5 tacos on Tuesdays. That sounds tremendous if you ask me, as you look at the board right there. Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, Friday, Monday, whatever you want. Montana's has it. And don't forget, there's a big contest coming your way this week. We're giving out a $25 gift card coming out on Thursday, the first of many prizes via our new friends over at Montana. So like the post, tag your friends in the comments, follow the show on Montana's socials as well to win a $25 gift card. And again, the draw date coming up on Thursday, February 2nd. Without further ado, happy to bring in today's guest from Overdrive, the host of Overdrive on TSN 1050 and TSN. It is Brian Hayes. Brian, thanks so much for making some time today. What's going on, bud? Oh, no, we can't hear him. Okay, we'll try to reconnect here with Brian. Obviously, technical. And Brian knows this doing Overdrive. There's always some technical issues on that front. So we'll try to get Brian going here in a second. Brian Hayes of Overdrive and TSN. Certainly always, when it comes to the Leafs perspective, it is always a fascinating time of year. Obviously, with the trade deadline, you see what Bo Horvat goes from the Vancouver Canucks to the New York Islanders and the effect of that trade. And now the ripple effect across the league, and as I mentioned earlier on, the example of the Boston Bruins and what that means for the Bruins in the grand scheme of things too. Do the Leafs have to be reactionary in the way they do business now, knowing that Boston missed out on a big slugger? Who do the Bruins turn their focus to? Like, is it a Tarasenko? Is it a Ryan O'Reilly? Do they go smaller game like Sean Monahan with the Montreal Canadiens? Like, there's a lot of names, and as we talked about with Elliot Friedman last week, it is sort of a buyer's market, and that seems to be developing over the last little while. So, that'll be the interesting part of this whole thing, from the Maple Leafs perspective, is what they do. And again, you can chime in here in the chat as to what you would put together. I know Tim and Flynn write in, Ryan O'Reilly would make the most sense. Jim writes in on the Matt Murray situation. Murray is good, but he just often injured. Yeah, would like the Leafs to keep him, but the structure his contract for injured, and Leafs try to pick up a 2B goalie for the short term. Wouldn't that be just tremendous, Jim, if they can put that together in a package? A lot of people want them to go big game hunting, but don't want to give up Nyes or Minton. So I don't know who you're going to get in a potential deal if you're not going to trade one of your stud prospects, if you will. So it's got to be one of those things. Like, if to get you to receive, you got to give, and vice versa. And that's pretty much what it's going to come down to from the Maple Leafs perspective. And if they want to get one of these sheer studs like a Ryan O'Reilly, then I guarantee you and assure you that, a guy like Matthew Nyes will be in the picture, in the conversation in terms of trades on that front. So saying what up as well to Tim here in the chat. Don't forget the Leafs Nation 401, our new YouTube page, which you can check out. But I think from Toronto perspective, they're feeling pretty damn good about life. Of course, we heard the news about Austin Matthews last Friday. What transpires now, not so much. I mean, there is five games within a 3-week stretch here for the Maple Leafs. So, like, it's not the end of the world. And I think it gives opportunity for guys like Alex Kerfoot. Call it a showcase, call it what you want. We all know the writing is on the wall potentially for guys like Engvall and Kerfoot, especially if you want to add somebody, money in, money out type situation. So I would never dispute and discount that type of situation as well when it comes to Kerfoot and Engvall. And you're looking at Kerfoot right now in a top 6 look. So very curious to see, how that situation works out as the Maple Leafs get set to host the Boston Bruins tomorrow night at Scotiabank Arena, the ending of a 5-game homestand. And certainly that's been the story for this Leafs team over the month of January, is just the home games and the home games and the home games. And then ultimately the schedule is going to catch up to them, but they're really good on the road too. And I sort of made the joke a couple weeks back that, like, would they ever jump to a part where they're like, you know what, we're going to go Samsonov at home and Matt Murray on the road in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Very unlikely, but I think it is a topic of conversation when you get closer to the playoffs. I think in a perfect world, you want that bona fide stud. You want that guy you can lean on. I think without question right now, that is Ilya Samsonov. And of course, Joseph Wald is the backup right now with Matt Murray once again banged up. So we don't even know much in terms of a status update on him moving forward. So it's Ilya Samsonov's crease. He's going to get the start again. They've already confirmed it tomorrow night. And unfortunately, I don't know if we'll be able to connect here with Brian Hayes. We're having some technical issues. And it is 2023, and technology is just, it's, we've all been through this throughout this season with technology. So it's unfortunate. I don't think we're gonna be able to connect with him. We'll have to try to connect with him a different time, but certainly there's always so many routes, and the guys on Overdrive do a fantastic job in what they put together on a daily basis, making it informative. And bottom line, I just laugh my face off when it comes to Overdrive. So hoping one day to get Brian back on the show if he just doesn't blacklist my number after our technology goes awry here on the show. But certainly, I think from the Leafs perspective, I'm just looking forward to the All-Star break, getting a bit of a break here with the bye week coming up as well. They won't play for 9 days, and there's nothing wrong with a bit of rest and relaxation. Not first and foremost for the injury concerns they have, specifically when you look at Matt Murray, when you look at Austin Matthews. Lick your wounds a bit, relax, chill out, do your thing, hit the beach for a bit, and then come back strong for, I guess, a stretch drive leading into the trade deadline, and also to wrap up the season before they get set to take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. So don't forget, Dinah Montana's Enjoy the Comfort Menu in a Molson and enter for your chance to win a trip for 2 to the NHL Awards in Nashville, or a Molson-branded NHL fridge. We're going to move on here. The wrap-up is brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. All right, so as we know by now, not a very busy NHL slate. Just 6 games in total this week over the span of 3 days. Washington at Columbus is the game I'm looking at for my play today. Of course, you saw the Capitals back on Sunday, a 5-1 beatdown for the Maple Leafs. So I like a bit of a response tonight by the Capitals. I'm going to take them on the 3-way against CBJ. And most importantly, Columbus is coming off a hefty 4-game Western road trip. So I do think that's a bit of a trap game traditionally in the NHL world. So I'm going to lay some coins, some money on the Washington Capitals for a bit of a response game, and then a bit of regression for Columbus. They actually had a pretty good Western road trip, all things considered, the way this season has gone. And I like the Capitals to win that game and respond tonight. So that is my look when it comes to the PointsBet Canada play of the day. Just reading the chat before I wrap. It's going to be a bit of a shorter show, of course, with us not being able to connect here with Brian Hayes. A lot of conversation about Timo Meier right now in the chat. Ryan O'Reilly as well. Jason B writing in, Meier would be perfect fit for the Leafs, along as the price isn't insane. But the problem is, like, there's just going to be a lot of teams involved on Ryan O'Reilly. Like, who doesn't want a guy who's not recently, much removed from winning a Conn Smythe Trophy, a gamer? I know he's having a tough season, but I think people pay for resumes sometimes, and that's unfortunately what does happen in this world. And if you're the Maple Leafs, it all depends on, like, do you want to get involved in a bit of a bidding war? Because it's going to happen. You look at teams around them, namely the Boston Bruins. They were just linked on Bo Horvat. You don't think they're going to go after Ryan O'Reilly now? Like, I think, it'll be interesting on that perspective, again, what the Bees do and how their mind shifts now that they don't get Bo Horvat. He ends up with the New York Islanders. But Jason writes in, the JT Miller situation's intriguing as well. They're just talking, I guess, with the conversation around, Timo Meier. Because Meier, of course, we know comes with a $10 million qualifying offer, but I guess they could trade him and flip him, or they can trade for him and then, sign into an extension right away. But Tim writes in, we can't afford Meier long-term. Yeah, so that's the conundrum. But again, it's so tough to play armchair GM right now, just more so because you don't know what's going to transpire if this team can't get past the first round again, right? Let's say, hypothetically, you lose to Tampa, then what, right? Does that include a trade? Does Dubas leave? Does Keefe leave? Does Shanahan leave? Like, there's just so many questions when it comes that it could just open up a different type of picture in the grand scope of things. So many thanks to all of you. The chat's been red hot today. I'm going to give Brian a shout after the show and see if we can figure it out, because I really want to get him on this season, just more so his perspective. He's a phenomenal host, and he's always got some really, really strong takes with support for those takes. So we're going to try to connect with Brian, hopefully try to get him on the show maybe tomorrow or Thursday. So many thanks to Jay Rosehill for chiming in with 3 Hits with Rosie. He always brings the heat. He's going to be back in the saddle tomorrow as we preview the Leafs and Bruins from Scotiabank Arena. So I'll leave you at that. Many thanks to our great sponsors, PointsBet Canada, and our friends over at Montana's. I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll talk tomorrow. Take care.